Have you ever sat in a room with someone, and though they didn't say a word, you could feel something unspoken hanging in the air? Have you ever looked into her eyes and wondered, what is she really trying to tell me? You see, sometimes life doesn't speak in loud shouts. Sometimes it whispers. And if you're not tuned in, if you're too busy or too distracted, you miss the whispers that could change your life forever. That's what I want to talk to you about today. How to know when she wants to pour water. Now, I know when you first hear that phrase, your mind immediately begins to wander. You ask yourself, what does that mean? Pour water? Is this about love? Is this about relationships? Or is this about life itself? And that's exactly the curiosity I want you to sit with, because behind this phrase lies a secret that could completely transform how you connect with people, how you recognize opportunities, and how you understand the subtle messages life is sending you every single day. When she wants to pour water, it isn't always about the literal act of holding a jug and tilting it. It is symbolic. It represents the moment someone is ready to give, to share, to nurture, to quench a thirst that maybe you didn't even know you had. But here's the real question. Do you know how to recognize it when it's happening? Because so many of us are living life thirsty, parched, running dry, when right next to us someone is holding water, waiting, ready. Yet we fail to see the signs. So this isn't just about her, it's about you. It's about all of us learning how to recognize when love is knocking, when kindness is stretching out its hand, when opportunities are gently tapping at the door instead of pounding loudly. Because most of the time, greatness doesn't come with fireworks, it comes with whispers. I remember a time in my own life when I almost missed it. There was someone close to me, and every time we sat together, she would make little gestures, small things. She would offer tea before I asked. She would pay attention to the smallest details. She would make sure I was comfortable. At first, I brushed it off. I thought, that's just her personality. She's just being polite. But then one day it clicked. Those weren't random acts. They were signals. They were ways of pouring water into my life, of saying, I see you. I care about you. I want to nurture something here. And I began to ask myself, how many times have I ignored such gestures? How many times has someone tried to pour water into my soul, but I was too busy chasing the noise of the world to notice the quiet offering? Life is like that. Opportunities, people, blessings, they rarely scream. They knock gently. And unless you learn to read between the lines, unless you pause long enough to sense the energy, you'll walk past the very thing that was meant to refresh you. Here lies the problem. We are living in a generation that is thirsty yet blind. We are thirsty for love, but blind to the signs of affection. Thirsty for opportunity, but blind to the doors being opened quietly before us. Thirsty for purpose, yet blind to the little nudges life gives us every single day. We expect everything to come dramatically. We want fireworks in the sky to announce that she cares about us. We want neon lights flashing to tell us this is the right path. We want applause, validation, grand gestures, and so we miss the quiet pouring of water. Think about it. How many times has someone tried to encourage you, but because they didn't phrase it in the exact way you wanted, you ignored it? How many times have you been offered an opportunity, but because it didn't look glamorous enough, you rejected it? How many times has life whispered, here is your moment, but you insisted on waiting for a shout? The truth is, when she wants to pour water, she rarely announces it. She moves gently. She tests if you are paying attention. She looks to see if you value the small beginnings. And if you don't notice, she pulls back. Not because she doesn't care anymore, but because she feels you weren't ready to receive. So how do you know when she wants to pour water? How do you train yourself to recognize the subtle cues, the gentle whispers, the hidden signs? It begins with awareness. It begins with slowing down enough to notice. It begins with a shift in perspective, where instead of waiting for the spectacular, you learn to treasure the simple. Because sometimes the glass of water is right there in front of you, but you're too busy waiting for champagne. And by the time you realize the power of water, it's gone. The first step to knowing when she wants to pour water is learning to recognize the signs. But here's the thing, the signs are rarely loud. They don't come with trumpets and sirens. They come softly, sometimes so softly that if you're not intentional, you'll walk right past them. When she wants to pour water, her actions may not match the grand gestures you've been conditioned to expect. Instead, she shows up in the quiet moments. She checks on you, not because she has to, but because she genuinely wants to. She notices the small details, like how tired your eyes look after a long day, or how your tone changes when you're upset. She asks questions others don't even think of, not because the answers will benefit her, but because she cares about what's happening inside of you. That is pouring water. It is an act of service, of giving, of nurturing. It may not be wrapped in glitter, but it is more powerful than gold. And if you train your eyes to see it, you will never again confuse indifference with care. But why do we so often miss these signs? Why is it that someone can be pouring water right in front of us, and we don't even notice? The answer is simple: distraction. We are living in a distracted world. Our eyes are glued to screens, our ears filled with noise, our hearts consumed with comparison. We are chasing the next big thing while ignoring the small, consistent blessings sitting quietly in our lives. And sometimes it's not distraction, it's expectation. We expect love to look like the movies. We expect opportunity to come with applause. We expect success to be dramatic. And because of these expectations, we dismiss the reality when it shows up differently. How many people prayed for a partner who would be loyal, caring, and supportive, but when they met someone who quietly embodied those qualities, they overlooked them because the person didn't have the flashy looks or the dramatic charisma? How many people prayed for a business opportunity, but when it came as a small, humble beginning, they ignored it because it didn't look like the million-dollar dream in their head? This is why we miss it. Because when water is poured quietly, it doesn't look like the flood we imagined. But the most powerful rivers begin with drops. Here's what I've learned: awareness is not automatic. It is a choice. You can choose to live blindly, rushing through life, waiting for only the big, loud moments. Or you can choose to slow down, to be intentional, to open your eyes to the beauty of the small. Awareness means paying attention to energy, not just words. Awareness means noticing effort, not just outcomes. Awareness means reading between the lines, not just focusing on what is written in bold. When she wants to pour water, she may not say, "I love you." She may not declare, "I'm here for you." But she'll show it in how she makes sure you've eaten. She'll show it in how she asks about your day. She'll show it in the consistency of her presence, even when you didn't ask. The question is, are you aware enough to see it? Why does she pour water? Why does anyone pour water into another person's life? Because pouring water is about giving without expectation. It is about nurturing something fragile before it grows strong. It is about investing in someone else's well-being, even if it costs you something. Psychologically, when someone begins to pour water into your life, it's because they've recognized your worth, even when you may not see it yourself. They've seen something in you that deserves care, that deserves attention. And that's powerful. But here's the twist: when someone pours water, they are also testing you. They are watching. Will you value what they're giving, or will you take it for granted? Will you drink from the cup, or will you let it spill? This is why awareness is critical, because if you don't value the pouring will stop. And when it stops, you'll suddenly realize just how thirsty you were. So how do you build that sensitivity? How do you become the kind of person who can sense when water is being poured, even in the smallest ways? First, you must practice gratitude. Gratitude trains your eyes to see what others miss. When you are grateful, you stop overlooking the small gestures. You begin to notice the details. You begin to realize that the little things aren't little. They're the building blocks of something greater. Second, you must practice stillness. A restless heart will always miss subtle signs. When your life is filled with constant noise, you'll never hear the whisper. Take time to be still, to reflect, to pay attention. Sometimes the difference between seeing and missing the sign is simply slowing down long enough to recognize it. Third, you must practice empathy. Put yourself in the other person's shoes. Ask yourself, what does it cost her to make this gesture? What does it mean that she noticed this detail? What is she communicating through her actions? When you shift your perspective from self-centeredness to empathy, you begin to recognize the language of pouring water. Ignoring the pouring has consequences. When she wants to pour water and you don't recognize it, she won't always complain. She won't always confront you. Sometimes she'll simply stop. And when she stops, you'll feel it. You'll wonder why the warmth is gone. You'll wonder why the consistency disappeared. You'll wonder why the care faded. And by the time you realize, it may be too late, because pouring water is an act of trust. She pours because she believes you're worth the effort. But if you repeatedly fail to notice, that trust erodes. And when the trust erodes, so does the pouring. If you've ever had someone suddenly stop caring, stop checking on you, stop investing in you, ask yourself, did I miss the signs when they were pouring water? Did I fail to value what was being given? This is why recognizing the signs is so important. Because when you recognize it, you not only receive the blessing, you multiply it. You not only quench your thirst, you create an atmosphere where water flows freely back and forth, building something beautiful and lasting. But it doesn't end there, Because recognizing isn't enough. You must also learn to receive. Not everyone knows how to receive love, kindness, or opportunity. You would think that when water is being poured, the natural thing to do is drink. But often, people push the cup away. They say, "Oh no, I don't need it. I'm fine." Or they downplay the act. "It's nothing. Don't worry about it." And in doing so, they unintentionally reject the very thing that was meant to refresh them. Receiving is not weakness. Receiving is not dependency. Receiving is acknowledging that you are human, that you have needs, and that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is accept the gift being offered. When she wants to pour water and you resist it, you send the message that her effort doesn't matter. You communicate without words that her pouring is unnecessary. And after enough rejections, she will stop offering. So, if you want to build a deeper connection, if you want to create a space where pouring flows both ways, learn to receive with gratitude. When someone brings you water, drink it. Don't question if it's enough. Don't compare it to someone else's pouring. Don't critique the size of the cup. Simply say, "Thank you. I needed that." But it doesn't stop at receiving. You must also value the pouring, because there is a difference between taking and appreciating. A child can take candy without understanding its cost, but maturity is recognizing that someone had to sacrifice, someone had to think of you, someone had to act intentionally for that gift to reach your hands. When she pours water, value it. Value the thought, the effort, the time. It may look small, but in her heart, it may have been a mountain to climb. Value isn't about how big the act is. It's about the recognition of its meaning. A glass of water is simple. It's not wine, it's not juice, it's not sparkling soda. It's just water. But when you're thirsty, water is more valuable than gold. In the same way, her act may seem simple, but in the right moment, it could be exactly what keeps you going. And here's where the real transformation begins. But don't just receive. When you don't just receive, and you don't just value, but you also reciprocate, because pouring is never meant to be one-sided. Water flows, and when it flows back and forth, it creates abundance. You don't always have to match her gesture with the same kind. You don't always have to pour the exact same cup she poured. But you must pour something. If she gives her time, you can give your attention. If she gives her care, you can give your appreciation. If she gives her presence, you can give your consistency. The point isn't to match, it's to contribute. Because relationships, opportunities, and life itself grow when both sides are pouring. Trust is built in the exchange of pouring. When she pours water into your life and sees that you receive it, value it, and reciprocate, something powerful happens. Trust deepens. She realizes, this is a safe place. My pouring is not wasted. My care is not taken for granted. My effort is not ignored. And when trust deepens, the pouring increases. She pours more because she knows you won't waste it. You pour more because you've learned the value of water. Before you know it, what started as drops becomes a stream, and what started as a stream becomes a river. That's how strong bonds are built, not through one grand gesture, but through consistent pouring back and forth. Pouring water requires vulnerability. To pour is to risk. She risks rejection, she risks being taken for granted, she risks pouring into a cup that may never pour back. And that's why your role is so important. If you want the pouring to continue, you must create a space where vulnerability is safe. That means honesty. That means respect. That means valuing her not only for what she does, but for who she is. Vulnerability isn't weakness. It's the birthplace of connection. And when you honor the vulnerability behind her pouring, you strengthen the bond beyond measure. How can you actively reciprocate when she wants to pour water? Sometimes it's as simple as listening deeply. Sometimes it's acknowledging the effort with words like, "I noticed what you did, and I appreciate it." Sometimes it's consistency, showing up in small ways again and again. Sometimes it's being proactive, pouring first without waiting for her to act. And sometimes it's protecting the pouring by making sure her vulnerability is respected, not mocked or minimized. When pouring becomes mutual, when both sides are actively nurturing each other, something extraordinary happens. You move from survival to flourishing. You move from thirst to abundance. You create an atmosphere where both of you feel seen, valued, and refreshed. And this doesn't apply only in relationships. It applies in every area of life. At work, when you pour into your colleagues and they pour into you, the entire team thrives. In friendships, when the pouring is mutual, the bond becomes unbreakable. In personal growth, when you pour into yourself through discipline, learning, and care, life begins to pour opportunities back into you. Pouring creates cycles. Negative cycles when ignored, positive cycles when nurtured, and the choice is always in your hands. But let's be honest, some people refuse to pour back. They receive, they enjoy, they even demand, but they never pour in return. That is one of the greatest tragedies of human connection, because water is meant to flow. When you dam it up on one side, eventually the river dries out. So if you've been blessed enough to have someone who pours into you, don't be the person who only takes. Don't be the one who drinks deeply but never fills another cup. Because if you keep taking without giving, you will eventually find yourself alone, thirsty, wondering why the pouring stopped. Life itself is built on cycles of pouring. The rain pours into the soil pours into the plants pour into the animals pour into us, and we pour back into the earth. That's how the world survives, through pouring. In the same way, human connections thrive when pouring flows both ways. It's not about keeping score, it's not about measuring cups. It's about living in such a way that water never stops flowing. Because when she wants to pour water, and you not only recognize it, but also receive it, value it, and reciprocate it, you create an atmosphere where love, trust, and opportunity never run dry. But pouring water isn't just about relationships with others. It's also about your relationship with yourself and with life. Because sometimes the person who needs to pour water most is you. So many of us walk around with empty cups, expecting others to fill them. We wait for her to notice us. We wait for life to bless us. We wait for opportunities to knock. And yes, sometimes those things happen. But what if they don't? What if she's tired? What if life is silent? What if the door you've been waiting on doesn't open? Will you remain thirsty forever? This is why you must learn the discipline of pouring into yourself. You must be your own well. You must be your own stream. Because when you know how to nurture yourself, when you know how to fill your own cup, you're no longer at the mercy of other people's pouring. Pouring into yourself means taking time for growth. It means investing in your mind, your spirit, and your body. It means resting when you need to, saying no when it's necessary, and surrounding yourself with environments that refill you instead of draining you. Because if your cup is always empty, even when she tries to pour, the water will vanish before you can taste it. But when you maintain a full cup within yourself, her pouring becomes an overflow. It adds beauty, but it's not your only source of survival. And sometimes shit isn't just a person. Sometimes shit is life itself. Life wants to pour water into you. Life is constantly offering you lessons, opportunities, and blessings. But again, the same principle applies. Are you aware enough